Hello friends. In the University of British Columbia Vancouver campus we have reached Museum of Anthropology, and behind me you can see a totem pole, wooden totem pole you can see here. We will go inside the museum and show you in detail. Request you to please subscribe to our channel Shekhar Travelers Walks and press the bell button for all notifications. Watch all videos, like, comment and share, and below each video there is super thanks tab. Please press that and buy super thanks. So we will now move to the entrance of the museum. It is here. You can see at the back. Entrance is there. You see that? So we are moving to that now. This is the entrance to the Museum of Anthropology. Yeah, this is the entrance. Right, also you can see an architecture built of wood again. Welcome to the Museum of Anthropology.
हम अपना ले लेते हैं तो तुम अपना ले लो।
So there's that large open box there. That is from my Gitsan Nation, and it was actually used for cooking. So one pretty interesting characteristic about banquet boxes is that they're made to be watertight. So they're perfect for boiling food. And they would have done this by filling the box with water, heating some stones up over a fire, and then placing those hot stones into the box, which would boil the water. They could boil all sorts of food in here, but salmon in particular has always been a really vital part of Gitsan diet and culture. So in the old days, before we had pots and pans, we would boil our fish in this. One really great dish that could come from that is a dish called hagel jam. It basically means fish stew or fish chowder. This is a very ancient dish, but it's still made all the time by my family, and it's one of my personal favorites. And then in front of it here, this one might be a little difficult to see with the label, but it's much smaller than most of the boxes surrounding it. The walls are curved at the top, and they're also sort of bulging outwards like a full basket. The box also doesn't have a lid. So this is a Haisla serving dish, and this would be used to serve foods and oils at feasts or to hold utensils like spoons. So we can see, despite all of these boxes being made with the same technique, there's a lot of variation in their look depending on all of their different uses. But if we head back to the main boxes of this stock, these were likely used for ceremonial purposes. And we can tell because they're adorned with all of these decorations. There's those white operculus shells on the lid on the left, and both of them have these really intricate form line designs. So these designs weren't just decorative, they had a lot of important meanings. So they represented the family of those who owned the box and the history of the family. They could also represent supernatural creatures that could bring and protect wealth, and protect the wealth that's stored inside of the box. The boxes themselves were also very prized possessions. They were brought out to feasts, representing wealth and status. They were given as gifts and passed down through families. It caused a lot of harm to my people, my culture, and even members of my own family had actually profited off the things that he took from us when he sold them here. And you may notice my naming of these as belongings. We refer to them as this rather than artifacts because artifact implies a little bit of a disconnect from the community that it comes from, that it's from so long ago that those who cared about it aren't relevant anymore. But most of the belongings here in the Great Hall don't go past the 1800s, so they're relatively new, but regardless of age, they belong to people, and they're still really important to families and communities that are still alive today. So that's why I wanted to take a minute to talk about this pretty long-standing issue of museums contributing to stolen belongings and how it's impacted the communities they've come from. Recently, museums have, in recent years, they have been taking steps in the right direction. There's a great example of this in the Great Hall here. If you look at that really tall red banner there, that's in the place of a Nisga'a totem pole. Used to be here at the museum, but it was recently returned or rematriated to its home community. And the Nisga'a community, along with a lot of other Northwest Coast nations, are matrilineal, so everything passes down through the mother. So that's the term we use when things are returned. So I think museums are taking actions to correct these things that have happened, but I still think we have a really long way to go. So as we're continuing on in the museum today, we're about to head to our next stop in a minute, but I just want you to start asking some questions in the back of your mind, like how did this belonging get here? What did it mean to the people that it originally belonged to? And should it even be here at all? So I will leave you with that to think about, but for now we are going to be heading to our next stop. This is going to be further down into the Great Hall, and we'll be looking at a totem pole. This is called the Skimsim and Willada totem pole. It comes from Gitnyao, which is one of our 6 Gitsan villages. We're all very close to each other, mainly along one river, the Skeena River, but this pole is located between the Skeena and the Nass rivers in northwestern British Columbia. The pole was raised in the village of Gitnyao in the 1800s, and it belongs to the Wilp, or house group, Wasalam, as a part of the Lakibu, which means wolf clan. Now, if you look at the pole, at the very top you can see a giant woodpecker. Underneath that is a row of human figures. And then there's a large mountain eagle, another row of human figures. Oh, and the mountain eagle's name is Skimson. And then at the very bottom is Willada. That's an ancestor, and she's also a mother figure. So in her arms, you can see she's holding her supernatural child. So the story of this pole is very long. It tells a lot of the history of the clan, like geographical landmarks, their past chiefs that they've had, traditional songs and regalia, things like that. But one pretty important character at the beginning of this story is Willada. Willada was the niece of a village chief who had the name Wasalam, and they lived in the area that's now known as Prince Rupert. So one day, Willada went out to gather wood. This is where she found a wood grub, which is a little wood-eating beetle. Now, supernaturally, she had a child with it, resulting in this child being half human and half wood grub. So this child does end up getting into a lot of trouble. One day he starts to eat through the wood of their house, and he burrows under the ground of the next houses, eating walls and boxes, and everyone in the village is confused as to what's eating all of their wood. But the people in the last house at the end of the village decide to keep a close watch on their boxes. So when they hear a gnawing sound coming from inside one of them, they begin to stab at the wood grub child. And this causes it to burrow all the way back to its house. It's said that to those who know the
How?
So this museum has 12 painted panels, and when Michael was asked to create this, the first thing he did was he went through everything the museum was throwing out from the renovations at the time. This is where he found some old storage trays that were used in collections, total cultural belongings, and he decided to incorporate them into this piece. So the 12 panels are the painted bottoms of those storage trays. Now, this artwork is an example of Michael's own style of art. He calls it Haida manga. He's combining Haida formline with storytelling from Japanese techniques. And he chose to take inspiration from manga because it would allow him to explore and apply his traditional Haida formline, but using a contemporary medium that was accessible, so anyone can look at this and connect with it. Now, one of the basics of Haida art is the sense of symmetry. So you can see that each side of this mural are sort of mirrored images of each other, but the details are different. So there's different depictions on each side, and every panel tells a different story. But when you take a step back and sort of see the bigger picture, there's a whole new image that's revealed, and it actually resembles the painted front designs of a Bentwood box. So there's all of the Bentwood boxes surrounding it, and you can sort of compare. You can see the central face in the middle, and then the form line ovoid design surrounding it. In the middle here, there are these two creatures. Separately, they face sideways, but when you put them together, they show that one front-facing creature. And you can actually see him flossing his teeth. He's got one flip flop on there. So Michael likes to add a lot of playful additions in his work. He doesn't take everything so seriously, but he does also pack his art with a ton of social commentary, and he's really combining these traditional Haida stories with modern topics, trying to lure them out into the world to become the first Haida or the first humans. And there's very similar stories for how the women are found. But this sculpture is a very monumental piece. It stands at 6 feet tall. In fact, it's so large that when it was first being installed, that skylight above it had to be temporarily removed so that they could lower the piece in by crane. And it's actually a much larger version of Villery's original carving. The original was a little boxwood carving, and it's only 7 centimeters tall, so very tiny in comparison. But the original is also displayed here at the museum. It's along the back wall, or in the black display casing on the left, so I encourage you to go try to find that on your own. But for now, we're going to head to a nice little mini stop along this wall here. Traditionally stay inside the family's big house, representing family history and ancestors. So on the left, there is a beaver. In the middle, those are 2 human ancestors. And then on the right, this is a bear, or we call it the Takwa. So the Takwa is specifically an important figure to the Haisla people. It taught us the teaching of the river cleanse. This is where you dunk into the water 3 times, and in between you brush yourself with traditional medicines. This could be devil's club or sage, and it's meant to cleanse the spirit. But how it started being practiced is some ancestors came across the bear doing this in the woods. He was in the river and he was dunking 3 times, and he had a wad of leaves and plants that he was brushing himself with. To our last stop of this tour, that's just going to be a little to the left here. Alright, so here we are at our last stop. If you'd like, you're free to gently touch or even spin this piece, but you can also just observe what you see. So when it comes to museums, we all know about the do not touch rule. We don't want to risk damage to a lot of important belongings, but MOA's made a point to include a lot of interactive objects. So there's the Haida bear just down the hall there, which you can interact with. There's the hanging drums in the Multiversity Gallery behind you, which you can tap on. And of course, there's the bone box, which we just saw with that interactive lever. So like Michael, the artist behind this piece really wanted his work to be accessible. So he encourages touch and interaction with it whenever. His name is Eric Robertson. He's a Gitxsan artist who was raised here in Vancouver, and a lot of his sculptures address the relationships between Indigenous and colonial histories. And you can see this represented on the abalone figures at the tops and bottoms of the pillar. So we can see on the right here, there is a jester and a crown. And then on the left pillar, there is a fish and a tree. So in 2000, MOA commissioned him to create this piece.
Hi friends. In the Museum of Anthropology at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, one can explore traditional and contemporary art from Northwest Coast First Nations and other cultures across the world. MOA, as it is called in short, Museum of Anthropology, MOA, features provocative exhibitions and engaging events, all within an iconic building designed by renowned architect Arthur Erickson that overlooks the mountains and ocean. Just 20 minutes from downtown Vancouver, you will admire magnificent carvings, weavings and contemporary artworks, as well as the world's largest collection of works by acclaimed Haida artist Bill Reed. Explore the MOA and enjoy. Bye bye.